So we ask for the guidance and wisdom of the ancestors who went before us and those whose lives were lost in the Middle Passage as we commune weekly in this book club. And particularly, we ask that the ancestors hold and guide us in our study of Yurugu. As we pour libations, please keep in mind ancestors whom to you embody the following principles. As we pour libations, the response is Ashe, so be it. I would just like to start libations with thinking about the family of George Floyd, who are going through reliving the atrocities that were done to George Floyd last year as they go through the trial. And also for the people in St. Vincent who are going through the volcanic eruptions over at this time. We also pour libations for all who dared to define, defend, and develop our interests as people. Ashe.
Ashe.
For our ancestral land, we say Ashe.
Ashe.
For our people then and now, we say Ashe.
Ashe.
For our children and those yet unborn, we say
Ashe.
For Kawaida and Guzo Saba and Ma'at, we say
Ashe.
For the systems of views and values which give identity and purpose to our lives, we say Ashe.
Ashe.
For the new world we struggle to build and for the continuing struggle to reconstruct and reconnect our history and humanity in our own image and words according to our deeds, we say Ashe.
Ashe.
We ask the ancestors to drink heartily and quench your thirst. We say Ashe.
Ashe.
Monica Sa, it is finished. It is done. Ashe.
Ashe.
Miss B, Veronica.
All right.
Nice to see you, Veronica.
All right. Nice to be here.
I love when you come in because you got like, it's not like all the other meetings. You got like all this energy I see. When I first met Veronica, it was like low energy. I'm like, what's wrong with her? Now she's like awake and bright.
Oh, yeah.
Like sunshine number 2. So did anybody get a chance to read or finish chapter 3?
Read but didn't finish.
Did anybody finish or started reading? Sunshine, you said you started, right?
Yep. I'll be right back.
Hey babe, what about you? You started or?
I started, I did the first 2 sections.
Okay.
I think, yeah, I did the first 2 sections.
JV, did you, the first 2?
Oh, yeah, we read like the first 3, I think, sections as far as chapter 3.
Usually you read the first 2, 3 sections.
The Ubuntu family, were y'all able to get any reading done?
Yes, but we didn't finish it.
Oh, okay.
The shortest section.
No, but listen, to be honest, I think it's that section, chapter 3 is kind of dope. Like I could relate to it a lot because I was in art school, but it's actually much more universal than that. Like it can be applied everywhere. But let's go back. Oh, Glenn just texted me. He's running late.
Okay.
I got a text from Glenn. He says he's running late. So what was the last section we left on, Miss Wheeler? Do you remember? You got a better memory than me.
I want to say it's either European Christianity and European paganism, or the one right after that. I think it's
after.
No. We're past that. Yeah, it's the religion and rationality syndrome.
It was like the last 3 sections.
Four.
And then techno social order.
Why I keep on forgetting the conclusion.
The record versus the apology. So it's the one right before that. Just wait. And then there's their conclusion. Oh yeah, then conclusion, religion, and power. So it's the religion and rationality syndrome on 178.
178.
Hi, Glenn.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Hey, Glenn, we all voted. We said you're gonna run the meeting today.
All right, I got it.
So religion and rationality syndrome. That's where we left off.
Yeah.
Okay. Now last week
I go back to patriarchy.
Why you want to start trouble so fast? Let's get in the
I
groove
was
with
making
this.
sure we finished everything to say about it.
By 9 o'clock, hey.
So, does anybody have any questions or any statements on that? Because I remember I did say write a statement or question. Did anybody do that? Well, not everybody answer all at once. I can't hear.
We're still thinking. Give us a moment. Let's start.
The statement should have already been written.
Right. I asked him too. I was like, "Do you think you have any?"
While you're thinking, I'm just going to read the statement. I'm going to read a statement.
Hey, there goes
Page 178. Miss Wheeler. Oh, maybe JB. Starting from sort of halfway down. The European
Reinhold Newberg recognizes the dilemma from there.
No, keep going.
The European identification
sort
of
the
religion.
first paragraph, just over halfway.
Okay. Yeah, so the European identification of religion with rationality is a demonstration of this tendency, ultimately originating in the need of control. The European interpretation is this use of reason was bound to the attempt to remove the religious experience from its natural cultural base, and thereby was confronted with the task of finding, which in this case means creating, the proper religious statement. Given the predominant perceptual mode of European thought, Europeans were destined to search within the confines of the abstract and rationalistic.
So why you asked to read that, Linda?
Because it has to start. It has to refer to something.
Because they're taking away what as African people we refer to as religion, aka spirituality, and they're recreating their version of what religion is, again for the need to control and define what they want to control.
Yeah, and I think it has like an emphasis too that, because they're the new ones on the scene, how they have to make theirs rational in comparison to everybody else because they're the newest. So they have to be like, okay, if you don't think like this, you're not thinking rationally.
Yeah.
And because of the
well they try to rationalize, like a lot of people. You guys heard of cognitive dissonance, where people they'll rationalize the irrational, right? Mm-hmm. And so what they do, especially when they talk about the abstract, is they go into their mind and be like, this is how everybody is, and then they paint the whole cosmos based on their perspective. and their perspective alone is the truth. And so because they see it as part of how they think, they already had objectify everything else. Again, they're objectifying this as well, and take spirituality out. So then they can easily say, well, if you don't think like me, it's because you are this and that and the other. You are, you're not the authority, or you're heathens, or part of it's part of what they always have been doing. Anything else, Linda?
Just thinking.
What about in terms of it relating to Africa?
You mean like in the Kemetic, ancient Egyptian
thought?
thought?
Yeah, like what's your thinking about that?
Well, I'm just looking at what she wrote here on page 179.
Mm-hmm.
Philosophy, theology, and science were never separate, and their integration becomes only problematic because of the reification of the Platonic abstraction, which tends to reduce thought to a limited rationalism, which essentially is what she's saying they are doing.
Now, does anybody care to break that statement down?
In order to rationalize, or not rationalize, but in order to ensure that they are pursuing their asili and having that power and control, it is necessary for them to separate science and separate those areas, because it helps them to rationalize their position on things, and make other cultures, other people that they come in contact with, to regulate what they're thinking to something that is against or not as strong as their percept of things, because they use their science, they use their mathematics, they separate these things, and always push that this is how you have to examine your world, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so it works for them, because it's further feeding that asili that they have. It is further reinforcing their mind concept, and helping them to pursue this idea of supremacy. Supremacy, and it just falls in line.
Power. Because
Yeah,
it kind of creates the. Go ahead, Eugene, and then I'll go
no,
after
I
you.
was just saying, it's from what Veronica is saying there. It's like they're creating a platform on which everybody else will have to function. So, and they are the ones who created that, and so they use whatever is natural to them to create that platform, and then now everybody functions on that.
Well, understand this. They are data Sealy already, right? That existed before the institutionalization and the development of their philosophy. So this has become an expression of data Sealy that they already had prior to the philosophical development and the institutionalization of it. And this is why even when I hear people say this comes from Africa or that comes from Africa, I normally say it doesn't, because what is a misinterpretation, and it's like if you look at Christianity and they say it's from Africa, I understand that argument, but I argue that it isn't. That the Christianity that is now is a creation of that European asili, because they took they took the spirituality out.
Yeah.
And so I argue with the Christians, yo, put that back, put the spirituality back. Don't practice what these people have been teaching you. You know, because you can't, you know, if you're gonna even follow some of the storylines, Jesus chilled with everybody, right? Like, he was chilling with everybody, and so, but either way, like if you're gonna be hardcore and like I'm keeping this religion, then Africanize it the best way possible. Make it spiritual, make it work, and what happens is that's a difficult task because we're living in a system, right, in a society that is well functioning, is functioning well and converting people, and so we pretty much were born into this matrices, and so it's hard to be out of the system, you know. Like that's why I said anything bad that I do is because of that European Asili. Anything good is because of the African Asili. You know.
Now.
The you know, and so it's not promoting anything, no connection. It's soulless, and so it creates an unhappy society.
Mhm.
You know, and so when Plato tried to understand Kemet, and what he did, he went, studied there, came back and interpreted and created his madness, separated spirituality because he could not understand that. That's no different like in chapter 3 where they talk about the musician. They like, oh, okay, like we dance naturally, you know, we get the rhythm and we start like letting our body go. They're like, okay, that step, move left, right, left, left, right. It's all analytical for them. And so he could not understand a lot of the things that were going on in Kemet. There's other examples that she mentioned. Anybody want to take a crack at it?
Well,
in 81, she mentioned
yeah,
Aquinas, Leibniz, Plato, and
180.
Aristotle.
Well, I was looking at 180, but that kind of sums up as far as what we're talking about. But if you go from 180 to where she starts it again, to 181 at the top, again, the lack of sophistication or depth of spiritual insight is striking here. Areas so impressively developed in African and other first world descendant philosophical systems. There is much in need for Leibniz that bears the stamp of Plato, while Aquinas is obviously much more in the depth of Aristotle and his self-moving mover. But like Aquinas and Leibniz, Plato and Aristotle represent
Leibniz and Aquinas.
Leibniz. Okay, and Aquinas. Plato and Aristotle represent only slightly different manifestations of the same ethnological traditions, all fit into the Asili, and so were embraced.
Well, Leibniz and Aquinas, they were part of the same. It's the same school as Aristotle and Plato. You know, they all that's a connection. You know.
Yeah. But they're much later than Plato and Aristotle, correct? Yeah. I don't think they're in the same time.
Well, they all are like about
they're hundreds of years later.
Well, Aristotle is a direct student of Plato, so, and then Aquinas comes way later, and then Leibniz is 16th century. He's the one who created calculus in the West. There was like 3 people created calculus, but they're saying
It's Thomas Aquinas. I see he's like 1274. Would that be 80? So like he's way after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But do you guys understand why she mentioned that? I think at this point she's trying to tie it all together, right? Kind of trying to like let everybody know all this is like one entire family. And it's long term. Anybody got anything else to say? Hey Glenn, were you able to finish chapter 2?
Yes.
Oh.
Well, no. I take that back. Wait, hold up. I'm on. Yeah, yes, I did. I'm on page 205.
So you started chapter 3?
Yes.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. So
I was getting it in a little bit.
So anybody got anything else to say before we jump to the next section?
Just that this whole idea of rationality, that keeps on being a very dominant presence in terms of how they proceed to try to gain control wherever they've gone, in terms of indoctrinating also our consciousness with their ideologies, because this is the approach that they took to every single thing. And so I think this was an important chapter too, just to show you this same method that they use here in chapter 2, they're going to talk about this in chapter 3 as well. This whole idea of rationalizing every single concept, everything they come into to show that by rationalizing things, you have power, you have control, right? And so they apply it to every single thing that they do.
Well, the thing is that they take out the spirit and they just rationalizing. They're not looking at the whole view, and they're capable of doing diabolical things, like killing a bunch of buffalo to get rid of a group of people. Like, who does those type of things? Or dropping two atom bombs when they already surrendered, and they just like, well, let's do it anyways, see what happens. Now understand, they did this thinking that there may be a 50% chance that they could blow the whole atmosphere in a planet, and they still did it. How many of you will launch an atom bomb one time, not 2 times, knowing that there's a 50-50 chance you could blow away the atmosphere and the planet? Who would take that risk? So there's some serious, it's rationalization, but it's crazy rationalization.
I think what Veronica is saying there as well is that rationalism was used as a tool in order to gain control. And they can apply it to anything.
That's what she said. It was understood.
Yeah.
So the second to last paragraph in that chapter on page 183 sums it all up, really. Miss Wheeler's getting ready.
I did. I unmuted and everything. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I actually was looking at that. I just was hoping that somebody else pick it up.
Yeah, in terms of the European Utamawazo, religions became associated with belief, non-value, while philosophy was associated with knowledge, value. Therefore, the task of the theologians was to give...
Can you stop right there? I mean, in terms of the European Utamawazo, religion became associated with belief, non-value, which is no value, while philosophy was associated with knowledge, value. If you hear people's arguments today about belief, right? Belief is like knowing without believing in something without knowing, right? And there's a difficulty because a lot of people use this with religious people with faith, and that's the argument that is being made, not understanding that these people with faith are operating from a European asili, right? And so they are able, the people, this is where they win the argument, the Christians, because there is, belief has a value, right? What you believe in leads to other things. It's just not, you know, there's like believing in a higher power has a value. Nijami, I'm mentioning you because you're the facts guy. And so these things are important to understand. Now, we're not talking about believing that the sky is purple because we don't really know what the color of the sky is, right? What's the color of the sky?
It only looks blue.
Do you want the scientific version with the chemical and physical, or do you just want what we think the color is?
I want the reality.
We don't know.
No, the reality deals with everything that you just said.
Mm-hmm.
We want the color, we want the chemical composition, we want the feeling of beauty, like, oh, look at the beautiful sky. We want all of it. Why negate any of it? See, that's what she really talking about. So there's people be like, oh, the sky is blue because of nitrogen. We don't need to know. Like, no, you got to deal with everything. That's the beauty. Go ahead, sisters.
Okay.
Therefore,
So like where
therefore,
I know. Therefore, the task of the theologian was to give European religion the shape of European philosophy, so as to enhance its value. First, the European Utamawazo artificially separated spirit from matter, known. Then it devalued spirit, unknown, and attempted to redefine it in terms of material reality. The ancient Africans had done the reverse. For them, all meaningful reality was rooted in spiritual. The rationalistic approach to religion is the counterpart of the European conviction that values are discovered intellectually rather than created via cultural activity. This ideological tendency has its historical and epistemological origins in Platonic thought and finds its development and interpretation in Aristotle and the scholastics. This syndrome perhaps points more dramatically to the spiritual failure of European religious formulations than any other single aspect.
Isn't that what they do to everything that we have, though?
Yeah.
You know, they don't like black folks, but they want to get brown. They put it into a beauty aspect now. They don't like our form, but they want to have injections in their lips.
This is go ahead, preach, girl. Go ahead.
Preach,
girl. Go ahead,
I could
preach,
give
girl.
so many examples.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous. It's like they can have a black wife and still be a racist.
Mm-hmm.
They can have a black husband and still be a racist. It's mind-boggling.
They could be black and still be a racist. preach.
No,
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
They can't be black and a racist. We don't have power like that.
Preach, brother, preach.
To be a racist, you need to have power. You could discriminate and you could be a bigot, but you can't be a racist. Yeah. You need power for that.
Well, I would say you could be black and believe in white supremacy.
Well, yeah, I
was
mean,
gonna say, like,
that's
you're
like
pushing
90% of the population, believe it or not.
the power agenda of white supremacy. So if you're pushing their racism, then you are contributing to racism, even though you're not the one with the power. So it's like, okay, yeah, you're not the one with the power,
Yeah,
but
they're
if you join the army
They're
and you kill on their behalf, then
yeah, they're instrument.
you're pushing that objective.
They're instrument.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Techno-social order.
I've got a summary. I've got a summary of that chapter, that area, that section, saying the written word equals technology. They've written things about religion. The doctrines are all written down. I like the interesting factor they bring into the city. Like, because you live in a city, it's true though, you live in a city and you're subject to all of that stuff. And that's supposed to be progress. I never looked at it that way before. If you live in the city, you're supposed to be more progressive. And then you're subject to all of the Asili adverts and teachings and subliminal.
Go to Times Square.
Right. Go to Young and Dundas.
All these psychic attacks.
Bigger and brighter the side.
This is something I learned very early on because I became, I was a student of graphic design. And it hit me hard like a brick. I'm like, wow, like this is power. And I recognized it as that. And I could not adjust. I did not want to adjust their way. I was the alternative student of the alternative. You had the alternative students, right? Those were the hippie looking, big bell bottom pants, everything tore up type, looking like a bohemian. I was the alternative, far right alternative of that, because I was the only hip hop brown skin person in my environment, and I had to adjust. I had a period of time where I hated the art classes because I didn't find, until I found the meaning of it for me, a purpose for it for me. And then they're like, Dan, you went from not drawing to now you drawing. And it was because
I think we all go through that, because one of the ways that I described it going through my student years, was that every class you were in, it was feeling to me as if they were trying to take away who you are. I mean, I think a lot of us will actually
they are. They literally are.
I didn't know that at the time, but that was my thought and my feeling. And and many people succumb to that. And a lot of the Black folks who were in my college dropped out because they couldn't take the pressure.
Well,
and I realized
many of us were dropping out for that very reason, because it didn't feel part. People were like, you know what they used to, because I was very active in college and I was like very quote unquote progressive. And what happened was they were like, Santos, how do you get involved with all these things and still be able to continue school? I said, I have no choice. I will fail if I don't change this environment. I'm not changing for the environment. I told this to a astronomy teacher. I said, I'm not changing for the school. The environment has to change for me, and I will make it change. And they're like, but isn't that so much work? You're gonna fail class. I said, if I don't take that approach, I already have failed. I would have failed.
And the thing is, not everybody can do that. For me, it was, I need to get through what I need to get through, and then I will tackle that stuff. Because for me,
you and I had a conversation about me not being a traditional student. So and I'm still not a traditional person. I'm always out the box for some reason. So
when I was doing a study on integration, what I learned, they was teaching us how to assimilate into society.
Exactly.
Not making society open up to diversity, but creating Black Europeans.
Yeah.
That was the purpose of integration.
Yeah.
If you want, so they would say, if you want to integrate in society, Black people must learn how to work in a white society.
Yes.
Must learn how to live within a white society. Not white society accepting Black people, but us accepting their ways and ideas.
And many of us still today view their way being the best.
Yeah.
We view Western society being the best, not knowing the trade-offs, not truly realizing the trade-off. And if we had the ability to really see the reality in the sense of like, okay, if we chose to live naturally an African versus the way we live in now, we'll probably be so upset at what we're choosing and not realizing what we're choosing. You know, I mean, I have a friend of mine, he's like, you know, people walk, because I'm like, he'll challenge me in certain ways, and I'll be like, yeah, but you know, I need transportation, the car, like, well, people survive this planet without it. And I'm like, yeah, but I you know, I'm not gonna just stop not having my ride now. And he's like, well, you know, look at those people in Honduras. They walked 1,000 miles to get here, and they still, you know, it doesn't mean it's not gonna be difficult, but choosing certain things, you know, we gotta there's a cost to that, you know. And are we getting drunk in Darasili, or are we detoxing from it? And so every choice that we're making, we got to be conscious of what we're doing.
I went through a similar thing in deciding to become a teacher, because when I was in university, and you know, we had a Black Students Union, and all the people in there were like, you know, the next revolution, this sort of thing. And then they would go in then to be Teachers College. And when they came out, they went into classrooms and with teachers. I could not believe the transformation from these same people who we talked about our children, and look at how our children were in the schools. But when they became a teacher, it was as if they were brainwashed, something happened to their minds, and they spoke the rhetoric that they would speak about. Even when we decided to have like the Afrocentric school, one of the biggest concerns was whether or not when the children came out of the Afrocentric school, if they could go into the European, let's say, influenced school,
well,
and still do well. Like, you know, like this was a big concern, rather than educating our children to know who they are, to know their history and their heritage, come out strong. They could go anywhere because they know who they are. But this was not the ideology. This was not what they were thinking. It was
public school is a perfect example of assimilation indoctrination. That was, they're like, oh, we're going to give public school to everybody. Don't that sound like we're going to save everybody get a chance to be saved? Give everybody public school, right?
Yeah, when I came out, my thing was I was not going to go to Teachers College, which I didn't for many years. I'm pretty much a new teacher. I think I can keep my mind intact now. But I did all kinds of alternative teaching, because I said there's no way I want to get to teach the system, right? So there was no way, right? And I found all kinds of alternatives. ACHA was one of them, which kind of got me through, like, you know, university, that sort of thing. And I learned that, you know, you have to know what's happening, because when I became a teacher, I was determined that certain things I will not do.
Right.
You know, and if you are aware of it, then I wouldn't say that you're totally not influenced, but my goodness, it's hard to maintain who you are.
Listen, we're all influenced by it. There's no way you could be it. We're born into this. Like we're deep up to our heads into this until we finally start developing our own consciousness, when we separate ourselves from our parents and start developing some type of meaningful purpose in our lives. But in terms of the technology, missionary schools were one of them, and they were free. Remember, like Jesuit schools and all that, a lot of them were free. Writing, you know, and this emphasis of writing, you know, I mean, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah,
it's a double-edged sword. You know.
Interestingly enough, in the Caribbean, and I think this applied to you as well, Ra, and in Africa, many times you hear that the kids who cannot afford to go to school because they can't afford to pay for it, who sponsors them to go further? Missionary. You know.
Yeah.
So and then you're supposed to you're getting free education,
gratefulness,
their education, but then there's a price to pay. On the price that you're paying is not the price that you think you're paying. Yes, you may have to go and work with them afterwards, but the whole indoctrination thing throughout those years of study is the bigger price.
You're literally being violated and like willfully in it. Like, they're like you're I mean, what they're doing to your brain is worse than whatever they could do to your body.
Well, also think about children going to school, with Veronica exception, right? not Miss B, but most other teachers have no idea.
She understands generalizations. She knows they ain't gonna take it personal.
Right? Remember, your kids are in their care 8 hours a day. They're with them longer than they are with you. And even when they're with you as the parent, what are you doing? You're doing 3 hours on a Sunday night studying Yurugu. So we're not, even if we're with them, we don't have all of that quality time with them, right? So we got to be aware that, you know, the time they spend with us can't be taken back. You know, it's time that is gone and lost if you don't make full use of it with your children.
In some ways, we need to start looking at sci-fi movies, because they reveal a lot of their consciousness there and their agenda there. Like, especially in the 70s. Like, you ever seen this something green,
Soylent Green.
Soylent Green. That's it. Like, I mean, that was like before my time, but I saw it.
Oh, you saw it? Okay.
Yeah. And so, you know, I got old friends, you know, who put me on. And so a lot of those type of movies, like, you really need to check it out, because it is, you know, they talk about overpopulation, and then people they're actually eating people.
The eating, that was a kind of
eating people.
Yeah, but they didn't know what they were eating though.
That's disgusting.
No, but there's a lot of things. The direction we're going with, like they're interpreting the universe, the world for us, and we're tolerating it. And so anytime, this is why even with the COVID, the vaccination, like if a person chooses not to use the vaccine, there's a whiplash behind that. But really, we need to be careful of if we're not propagating an agenda, because that could be part of their asili as well. Like, you know, so we need to be, there's a fine balance between really dealing with this with truth and not, you know, not like forcing people to do things and say, oh, you have no reason for, like, you're ignorant, irrational. I mean, nobody here thinks that way, but there's people that will think, oh, you stupid because you don't want to take the vaccine shot. And then the person said, well, we know what happened in history. Oh, but it ain't happening now. Like, we can't just cut it like that. We can't cut it like that. You know, we got to be very careful when it comes to these things. And that's technology.
Are we into the techno-social world?
No. Yeah.
Well, that's a good quick way of, you can find another one, Linda.
Yeah, I have lots of them. Page 184, the conception of time. Miss Wheeler.
Hold on, but did we 104?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, we talked about it.
Techno-social
And the
area.
cities, the bit about the
Yeah,
growth.
we're on techno-social, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the 184.
184.
Or the growth of cities, okay.
The growth of cities, if you wanted to read that
Okay,
about progress, supposedly.
wait, which one? Not the conception of
The
time?
chapter.
No, it says the growth of cities and use of writing is a preferred mode of general emphasis on technology as a social goal. All go hand in hand with an assumption of and belief in the idea of progress, in which the continued intensification of the social facts constitute
Absolute.
absolute value.
Miss Wheeler, can I just say, Ra, Miss Wheeler's gonna read the next piece.
I can't with my glasses. I gotta take off my glasses to read. Actually,
Let's get the lady who to do the reading.
I know she's a much smoother reader than I am.
Well,
I'm here trying to find like my. I'm here trying to do one of these, but I didn't want everybody to see.
But we had already talked about that one.
Okay.
The growth of the cities and use of writing and preferred.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did. Okay, so that was just to finalize that point.
Oh yeah, the point. Thank you.
The last section, the last paragraph. Miss Wheeler, please.
This conception of time and of an impressive
Hey,
future
don't diss me now.
culturally to direct the activities of a people towards the creation of an ever-increasing rationalized technical order. Insofar as Christian ideology is predicated on lineal and not cyclical or repetitive conceptions, it supported this kind of development and was therefore an important aspect of early European development. For while the accelerated growth of the technical colossus may have been many centuries away, the ideological germs were already incubating, laying the groundwork for a more mature westernization.
Keep going, keep going,
Okay.
keep going.
It's
Keep going.
compelling here to diverge briefly to mention the seemingly anonymous case of Islam, which has several of the same ideological features as Judaism and Christianity. Islam provides a model for social organization that promotes some of the characteristics associated with European culture. Patriarchy, the monotheist ideal, an emphasis on accumulation of literature and institutionalized learning as opposed to traditional education. While Europe was going through an embarrassment of her blind age, the Islamic culture was preserving and developing a tradition of scholarship that Europe had associated with her own history. Why then isn't Islam considered a Western religion, or is it? It is never considered to be such in the textbooks in which Europeans define themselves. Europeans did not, of course, choose to follow Muhammad.
Interesting.
Anybody want to answer that question? Glenn, you want to answer that question she asked? Why then isn't Islam considered a Western religion, or is it?
I'm not sure about this one.
I'll answer it.
Hold on. I'm trying to get the quiet ones to say.
Oh, the quiet ones.
No, I know you my girl, you know, even though you be betraying me sometimes. Niyami, you think you could crack that one? Or Mrs. Ubuntu? Hold on, Mrs. Ubuntu. There you go.
She said no. She said she refused to answer.
No,
that's all right.
No love. Go ahead, brother. If she doesn't want to answer, you can answer as long as you're not under distress.
Well, I'm fine. I'm winking at the same time. So
okay.
You said why they don't consider Islam as a
the question that she asks is, why then isn't Islam considered a Western religion, or is it?
I would say it is.